Hello and welcome back to the Kent Morning Show live on KMTV. Good to still have you with us. Just gone 7:45 this morning. Let's take a look at what's making the national and international headlines with the papers now.
All right, we'll start with the Metro, which reports on the recent hot weather, reporting it's the hottest start to May on record. The paper's reports passengers were stuck on the London Eye as temperatures hit 28 degrees.
Oh, I wouldn't want to be on there in that type of heat. Well, another type of forecast on the front of the Times this morning, if we can get that paper up, it says interest rates are on track to fall at their fastest rate since the 2008 financial crisis, which is good news for mortgage holders, of course, offering relief from years of high borrowing costs. Also, look at that lovely wisteria on the front page there.
Now, the iPaper reports this morning the Home Secretary's plans to tackle abuse of UK care worker visas in a drive to cut net migration. Yvette Cooper's white paper will target the health and care amid fears rogue bosses are abusing their position as sponsors.
Elsewhere, the FA's decision to ban trans players from women's football is the Sun's front page lead. It follows the UK's Supreme Court's ruling earlier in April that the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. It's understood that the England and Wales Cricket Board is also expected to ban transgender women from the women's game as well. OK, finally, let's return to some local election news now with The Independent, which says the Conservatives are bracing for a right-wing wipeout in the local elections in what the paper calls the Farage fear factor. Also some pictures there of a beach not too far from us, only over in Essex, packed with people enjoying the sunny weather. And that was a familiar sight here in the county as well, of course, because temperatures here in Kent reached as high as 28 degrees. That is the hottest start to a May on record. It marked the hottest day of the year so far before summer's even officially kicked off.
The number has even broken records, it might have broken records, but local businesses in Margate say while the heat might bring in some tourists, they'll head for the beach over the shops.
Yeah, our reporter Kristen Hawthorne's been down to Margate's seafront to find out more.
As global warming becomes more and more present in our daily lives, days like today really show the impact of climate change. People in the UK usually don't expect high temperatures until the summertime, but the heat today has got people out on the beach and sunbathing.
The weather is perfect. We escape, have day off, we say why not. See, it's beautiful, it'll be cold, but it's really nice. Till the moment I really enjoy it. I like it. I hope it's continue like this.
I don't feel it is very hot. I think it's 20 degrees, 22 degrees, but it feels like it's more hot because of humidity, but I think it's not yet. It's only the first day of the year when it's the most hot now. So when it's holiday time, I don't stay too much at the Margate beach. I go to Westgate, more quiet places, because now it's alright. I think everybody's at the work, that's why it's not busy. Maybe after 3 o'clock afternoon, people coming back home from work, so.
I wouldn't walk about in it for too long, but it's nice if you can go in your garden, but I wouldn't spend the day on the beach. Not for me, it's a bit too hot. Apparently it's only here for a day or two, and it's going back to being chilly the weekend.
You were saying it was quite cold, and this is the first
It's been freezing in Herne Bay and Margate, because I look at the weather every day. My daughter lives in Margate, and it's been really cold, like fleece and under fleece, yeah.
It is the 1st of May today, and here in Margate, temperatures have reached highs of 26 degrees. There are people out sunbathing and building sun castles, but is it all fun and games?
No, the hot weather doesn't help us at all, really. It brings people to the area, but unfortunately they are on there as opposed to in here. For us as an industry, what we need a nice day forecast, and then the forecasters get it wrong, because when people are in Margate and they're on the beach and the weather turns a little bit, the first thing they do is end up coming straight into the arcades for cover and what have you. So they're here for the day. It's like, well, we'll be on the beach. If we can't go on the beach, well, let's go in the arcade. So that's what works better for us.
Even though the summer has seemingly come early this year, one business says it's not enough, and that the cost of living has affected how people can enjoy their time come rain or shine. Kristen Hawthorne for KMTV in Margate.
lovely scenes. I've been saying for weeks now on the Kent Morning Show we needed a nice sunny beach day.
But it's not good news. It's not lovely scenes for everybody.
Not for everybody. No, I know that there are lots of people that really don't like the heat for many reasons. But you can't help the weather, can you? You can't help what it's going to do. So.
All right, but as one of the ladies Kristen spoke to mentioned in that piece, it was only here for a few days.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the forecast now because it is dipping back down. Well, this morning is bright and sunny if you're waking up on this Friday, 2nd of May, and heading off to work. 19 degrees across most parts of the county, 18 in Margate, dropping to 17 by the coast. So perhaps not many people by the beach this evening, but still highs of 23 elsewhere. And as I mentioned, that picture dwindling off towards next week. Some sunshine and clouds, but still staying dry. That's the key bit for us, dry.
Well, now don't forget you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website, kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all of our reports, including this one.
The Port of Dover sees ships coming into its waters every day, but now it has a new arrival that it hasn't had built on its seafront for nearly a century. An acoustic sound mirror, but this one is designed to make people more aware of the struggles of veterans rather than the sounds of planes. Back in World War II, these sound mirrors would have lined the south coast, all to detect the noise of incoming enemy aircraft. But this one takes on a different meaning. It's all to raise awareness and amplify the voices of veterans who need support the most. It was commissioned by the Royal British Legion Industries and launched on the anniversary of both Victory in Europe Day and the invention of radar.
So we've been working on it for several months. Obviously VE Day 80 is coming up. It's a really important time. Potentially the last time we'll have a major anniversary with people that were still in combat and serving during World War II. So we've been working on it for quite a long time. As I say, Martin's worked with us before and he's come to us with this idea and we've worked to develop it together.
The RBLI also say that in the last 12 months alone, they've seen a 45% increase in requests and referrals for emergency veteran accommodation. Former Chief of the General Staff and RBLI patron, Lord Dannett CBE, thinks the timing of the launch is vital because of the increase of referrals, but also with the state of current global affairs. And he isn't the only one.
We've got to bear in mind this year it's all the more important with that current threat from Russia on Ukraine. I've just come back from Tallinn where of course they're also on the front line of that threat. So it's so important people remember the importance of this, but also we reward and look after veterans who need us and donate to the RBLI and other charities to ensure that veterans are treated with dignity and listened to, which I think this is quite important being a radar, which of course assists with listening.
For the installation, the RBLI commissioned the same artist that designed their Tommy logo.
Well, I've always loved the acoustic mirrors that you can almost see either side of us here, 2 or 3 miles away from where we are now. These beautiful, steadfast, sentinel structures made of concrete. They weren't built as artworks, but to me they looked like artworks. And I wanted to draw together the Tommy and the idea of listening, and the amplification of ancient voices, learning from the echoes of history.
And by bringing a piece of Dover's past back into the present, Martin and the RBLI hope the structure will raise money and awareness that allows them to continue to house veterans and their families. Finn McDermott for KMTV in Dover.
All right. Also, check out Kent Online today for all your latest news and top stories from across Kent. We're going to take you to one now, which has got votes split.
It's got people talking, definitely.
Yes.
We've got plans that have been put in at Ashford Designer Outlet, one of Kent's largest shopping areas. They want to put a Ferris wheel in the car park. I know that people have their opinions about being able to park in
You'll recognise, on the article, you'll recognise the tents, the big tents that they have. You can see the big white tents around the sort of ring that the Ashford outlet is, and that's the spot they want to put a Ferris wheel in. I mean,
it's an interesting one, of course.
That's what it would look like.
I'm sure, yeah, there you go. So that's what the actual plans have sort of been proposed to look like. I mean, I'm sure people have their opinions. I know I love a good Ferris wheel myself. Not sure I'm thinking about getting on one whilst I'm doing my shopping, but then maybe that's what they're trying to change here.
Well, there are some raising concerns over the increased number of drivers potentially heading to the centre, while others quite welcome it. It's going to be 33 metres high if it's put in place. It would feature 24 gondolas, could be in place by as soon as July, just 2 months away. It would be installed next to the site's play area on 7 disabled parking spaces, which exist, but those 7 spaces will be reallocated elsewhere. So it's not taking up parking spaces in terms of the disabled bays that were offered there. They've asked for permission, and they say but others have said they think that it should be blocked.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the centre owners, MacArthur Glen, it's not the first, it wouldn't be the first sort of big wheel that they've had at one of their shopping centres. So at the Cheshire Oaks designer outlet in the Wirral, they've had a big wheel there since 2022, and they say that it's proved to be a popular complementary attraction for shoppers. I mean, Ashford Designer Outlet is obviously very iconic in terms of its design, so you get a lovely view of the whole park, and maybe you can choose where your shops you're going to go into next, or decide you want to leave maybe. But each ride of those other ones take around sort of 10 to 15 minutes, and tickets around about £6, where children under 4 foot, they make that clear, under 4 foot can ride for a £1 discount, £5.
Okay, well, some people say they just wouldn't pay for it. They say it will attract more people to the outlet, which is great in boosting visitor numbers, but parking is a problem. Traffic congestion. If you've been to the Ashford outlet on a busy day, you know it can get very busy. And there is a poll that Bartholomew's got up on the screen there. Is the Ashford Designer Outlet a good location for a Ferris wheel, yes or no? And I can tell you, the votes are very split. 46% for yes, 53% for no. So head over to Kent Online and put your vote in.
Yeah, and make sure you comment as well. Tell us what you think.
All right, see you after this break. Hello and welcome back to the Kent Morning Show live on KMTV with Abby Hook
and Bartholomew Hall. It's Friday the 2nd of May. The time has just gone 8 o'clock. Here are today's headlines.
Counting is set to begin later today in this year's Kent County Council election to determine which party, if any, will take control of County Hall. Election staff at 12 sites across Kent are working to determine the results of 81 seats in KCC's 72 divisions. We'll bring you updates as they happen.
Records have been broken as Kent's seen its hottest start to May on record, with temperatures rising to highs of 28 degrees in the county on Thursday. We've been speaking with those heading to the beach and the firms worried it's taking business away from them.
An annual survey which monitors the number of bugs squashed on our number plates has found a long-term decline in the number of flying insects. Kent Wildlife Trust's analysis of records from thousands of journeys show a 63% drop in the number since 2021.
And a man from Gravesend's preparing to walk 1 million miles this month to raise awareness and funds for mental health provisions. Mindfulness coach Bhupinder Sandhu's previously taken on giant walking challenges with plans to walk from London to Paris later in the summer.
All right, but to our main story this morning, counting is set to begin later this morning in the Kent County Council elections.
It's been a fierce election campaign with leaders of political groups all coming down to Kent to support campaigns in the 72 electoral divisions.
It's also likely to be the last ever KCC election with local government reorganisation on the cards.
Well, our local democracy reporter Gabriel Morris joins us live now from County Hall. Gabriel, good morning. Campaigning is all over now. The polls have closed. Counting is set to begin later on. Take us through the issues that have been discussed in this election. Is there one that outshines the others?
Morning, Bartholomew. I'm stood outside the building where all the political parties have been fighting to get control of over the last few months. It's from within this building where issues from potholes to adult social care to state-run schools to children with special educational needs are all controlled. But none of those issues have really been dominating this campaign. Yes, they've all been mentioned. If there's one issue that's been mentioned, that's the rise of Reform UK. If you speak to any political parties, they bring it up. And I think there is a pathway for Nigel Farage's party to take majority here today if the wind is blowing in the right direction, at least yesterday. However, I think it is all still to play for, and I think we could be in a situation where any of the political groups could have a council leader controlling KCC this time round.
This year's local election might go down as one of the hottest. While most took the opportunity to relax in the shade, of course, after voting, party campaigners were putting a sweat on, racing for support. We know the polls have closed. The question now is who is going to take control of Kent County Council. Labour's been the latest opposition, most recently having 5 councillors. Their party trumped at the general. Could they take charge locally?
We are hopeful that we will increase the numbers that we have and hold our councillors. So hopefully we've led a positive campaign, so hopefully we can move forward and build for a shadow election in 27-28.
Unlikely, it sounds. But how about Reform UK? After all, some polling puts them in a majority. What's their feeling?
You can feel there's a different energy. The other parties have felt almost very silent and muted. But, you know, we want to see the full figures and then
a majority
from there. That'd be great. And I think people would like that as a change because they're fed up of the same old status quo.
Let's take a look at the latest controllers, the Conservatives. They won a whopping 21-seat majority 4 years ago. Are they confident?
I think we all know, realistically, that there are a number of parties in contention, and we will have to see exactly how those results play out in a whole number of individual divisions across the county. So I think nothing is impossible. There's a whole range of possible outcomes.
Let's see about that then. On to the Lib Dems. They've had their leader in the Garden of England this week. But tell me, a majority is unlikely. How about forming a coalition though?
I think we've got to wait and see what shakes out once all the votes are counted. Look at who's elected. It's not just about the parties, it's about the individuals who are elected. Look at their policies, compare them to our policies, and be willing to listen and work with people. I think there are certainly people we're not going to work with. We're not going to work with Reform. There's no point talking about that. very unlikely to work with the Conservatives.
And lastly, the Greens have already ruled out a majority.
You could have a coalition maybe between us and Lib Dems, maybe us and Labour. The parties we would certainly not be in coalition with would be Reform and the Conservatives. That is a non-starter.
81 seats are up for grabs at Kent County Council, and people right across Kent had their opportunity to have their say at the more than 800 polling stations dotted right across the county.
To win outright, a party needs 41 seats. But with the current political landscape, the odds of any group hitting that number, slim.
As you can see, there's no clear front runner this time around, almost the first time in Kent County Council's history. However, I think if there was going to be one party which stood the most chance of winning a majority, that's 41 seats, that would probably be Reform UK. But what is definitely for certain is the Conservatives' council account is going to be absolutely slashed. As I was saying, they had a whopping 21-seat majority last time round, but that was off the vaccine high. Now, I don't know if this is a telling sign or not, but just as we were going live a few moments ago, I saw a Conservative councillor walking in with a cardboard box. Seemingly, he's going to be clearing his desk. Don't know if that's a telling sign. There could be something else there, but this could be a picture to come later today.
Seems like it's going to be, a day to remember for the history of Kent's politics. Now, look, they're all seemingly dismissing this majority. I know we had a few sort of takes from the parties there. What's your take? Could we really see a rainbow coalition forming here?
I think that's probably one of the most likely scenarios today, Bartholomew. We can rule a few things out. We know the Lib Dems, Labour and the Greens have all said they don't want to work with the Conservatives nor Reform UK. But what about those two parties working together, Reform UK and the Conservatives? I think that is one option, but would that be popular with party members on both sides? Probably not, but anything is possible, as Roger Goff said in my report. The more likely option, if there's going to go down a coalition path, that would be a rainbow coalition of the Liberal Democrats, Labour and the Greens, and possibly some independent councillors who might be elected later today. That would be a more Liberal-leaning Kent County Council. However, they'll still be looking to get a majority of 41 seats, which isn't impossible when you look at all those parties, but it will be tough. But if luck's on their side, well, I think that might be our next Kent County Council. If not, we're going to be left in a situation where we could be in a minority-run council, either by the Conservatives, possibly by Reform, or any of the other parties. And that's going back to my point earlier. I said we are in a situation this time round where it could be any political group who could put a leader up for Kent County Council.
It's just gone 8 o'clock here. We're starting to get a bit more of what the national picture is looking like, but we've got a while yet till we find out what the county's picture will be.
Yeah, that's because other areas across Kent had by-elections and mayoral elections, even some county council elections, they did an overnight count. In Medway, they usually do an overnight count, but for Kent County Council, none of the counting is starting until 10 a.m. All those votes from yesterday are still in boxes, probably at the moment making their way to the various 12 different counting stations dotted around the county. Now, when they get there at 10 a.m. this morning, when voting starts, they actually get counted twice. The first time to verify them and get rid of any spot ballots, and the second time, what they're the different parties and seeing who had the most votes in each division. So I would suspect we'll get a clearer picture mid-afternoon, but let's not forget, I think this time around, the voter split in the different seats is going to be very small. So, like we saw in Runcorn, I think we might get a recount or two in Kent.
And Gabriel, just a very quick update for us. I know we've got lots coming in, as you say, from the rest of the country. We will have our results later in the day. Tell us how people can stay up to date with all of that.
Yeah, we'll have a Kent Online reporter here at Kent County Council today. They'll be summing up the results nationally as they all come in. And you can check those out on the Kent Online live blog. But KMTV will be having a special politics show. Me and Oliver de Sax will be joining you live at 5 p.m. today. to analyse what we know so far and look at the trajectory of where we're going. And then, of course, at 7:30, we'll have Kent Tonight, where hopefully, I don't want to promise anything, but I'm pretty confident by 7:30 we'll have a clearer picture of where things are going. But if it's a coalition, I'm afraid we probably won't know for a week.
Gabriel, thank you very much. Very interesting. All those people that voted will be sitting, watching eagerly and waiting for your updates as well, Gabriel. Thank you very much for keeping us in line with the latest this morning. Of course, we've got a couple of hours until counting even starts as well. Very eerily quiet where Gabriel is as well.
It is. Lots of excitement happening elsewhere in the country. I'm sure the parades will be coming here later on.
All right. Speaking of the headlines from across the country, let's take a quick look at the papers.
Yeah, let's start with the Metro. It's reporting on this recent hot weather. Of course, we've been reporting on it as well today, saying it's the hottest start to May on record. The paper reports passengers were even stuck on the London Eye.
OK, we're over to the Times now. Another type of forecast which says interest rates are on track to fall at their fastest rate since the 2008 financial crisis. And good news for mortgage holders, offering relief from years of high borrowing costs.
OK, let's go to the iPaper now, reporting that the Home Secretary is planning to tackle abuse of UK care worker visas in a drive to cut net migration.
OK, over to the Sun now. The FA's decision to ban trans players from women's football on the front page. Leading there, it follows the UK Supreme Court's ruling back in April that the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. All right, that's the headlines on the papers this morning. Time for us to take a very short break.
Hello and welcome back to the Kent Morning Show live on KMTV. Just gone 8:15 this morning.
Now to dive into this week's health headlines, from a new treatment for multiple types of cancer being introduced to the NHS to milkshakes and lattes potentially having more sugar tax applied to fight obesity. Well, Dr. Julian Spinks joins us.
Julian, first of all, we want to bring you a story about the NHS introducing a new cancer treatment, nivolumab. It's an injectable form of immunotherapy and it can be used to treat 15 different types of cancer. And it's said to be far quicker to use than an IV drip, which would usually take sort of around an hour in those treatments. How does this work?
It's an immunotherapy. What that means is it's using antibodies, and it's against a particular protein called GD1, which is found actually all over the body, but particularly on the surfaces of some cancers. And that protein blocks the immune response. In the rest of the body, it's to stop it when the immune system is responding to an infection. It doesn't kill all the cells around it. But in the case of the cancer, it stops the immune system attacking that. This actually will attach and stop that protein from doing that work. And because it's a protein that's found on multiple cancers, it means you can use the same drug across an awful lot of diseases.
Is that the way medicine is moving, finding a similarity across different types of cancer to be able to target it that way? So say if it's a protein and that's in all of the cancers, it's able to target that, then you've got sort of a widespread solution. Is that the aim of lots of different medications? Because we were recently talking about a blood test that tests for 12 types of cancers, these kind of things.
Well, we're starting to understand how cancer works. And whilst, yes, they're individual depending on which organ they've come from, there seems to be common features such as this protein found across several cancers. And the great thing now is we can design molecules and design antibodies to attack these. And that's making a dramatic difference. And every time we see a drug with MAB on the end of it, it's an antibody drug. It can be used for cancer. There are other ones used for things like rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis. And they are a very big breakthrough. The big problem is that they are very expensive to develop and also quite expensive to use. This particular one actually has been around for a few years, but it's finally coming into the NHS.
And what will this actually mean for patients, for people who are suffering from cancer? Will it make the process easier for them?
Yes, it'll have lower side effects, not completely absent side effects, than traditional chemotherapy. The other thing is that it's actually effective against some of the really nasty cancers. So stage 4 malignant melanoma, skin cancer, will respond to this. Likewise, things like pancreatic cancer, which is a big killer and very difficult to treat, will respond. So it's giving us another option. It'll never be a perfect thing, but it's moving us closer to defeating cancer.
Yeah, and the question on everybody's mind and the one we always ask you is how quickly can this be implemented?
Well, this has been put in. I haven't seen figures yet to say exactly how many people will get it and who will get it. But this is a big step forward because it's not just a theoretical research, it's going into practical use.
And we're actually the first country in Europe to offer the jab as well. It seems to, when we chat and we talk about medicines and things coming in, we seem to be after other countries. So is this rare that we're the first one, or is that quite usual in medicine?
No, sometimes we actually lead the way. In this case, it was developed in the US and has been around in the US for a few years, but hasn't been licensed in either the UK or Europe. And as I say, every health service is trying to work out how they can afford a lot of these drugs. So it varies, but sometimes we really lead the way.
So it really does come down to the money that this costs rather than the technology, I suppose.
It's how well it works, how much it costs, and therefore how much it costs to save a life or improve a life, which sounds horrible, but we have to make those decisions.
Okay.
All right, I want to move on to another story now. The government, their sugar tax could be extended to pre-packaged milkshakes and lattes. We were obviously talking about it earlier in the programme. We've got a few of these sort of pre-packaged drinks to put up on the screen here and sort of talk through. But first of all, can you just tell us what the idea was behind the sugar tax in the first place?
We've had the sugar tax for a few years, and I think actually most people forget that it happened. And what it did was they said if you have more than 5 grams of sugar per 100 mils of the drink, then you paid additional tax. And it has had an effect. People have moved to drinking healthier drinks, or less, at least lower sugar drinks. But the biggest thing is the manufacturers have looked, and if they were just over the limit, they've dropped the sugar down. They promote the sugar-free alternatives. This is why you don't see adverts for full-fat colas and things like that anymore on the TV, because they want you to have those other drinks, which keeps their prices down.
Do you think people aren't drinking the drinks, the fizzy drinks with the high sugar content, because it costs more, even if it's a few pence, or because they're realising, oh, that's why it costs more, because it's the sugar tax, because we're aware of it, because when it comes up on a receipt, when it comes up on a till, you're reminded of it. So do you think it is the money, or it's the realisation and actual knowledge that it's bad for us?
It's a bit of both, and we know from smoking, for example, raising prices dropped usage. But I think the bigger effect was actually the manufacturers making a difference. And it's not designed to make people's life a misery, and I don't mind people having an occasional treat if it's higher in sugar, unless they're diabetic like me. But at the same time, we want people to go for a healthy alternative. The changes here are that they're going to apply it to the milk-based drinks as well, which they haven't done before.
And we mentioned sugar-free there. We do have some of these milkshakes to go through, but this sugar-free debate, concept, idea, thing people talk about is people say, actually, the sugar-free versions have lots of other nasty stuff in them. So actually go for what we determine full fat. That's the sort of term we use for these drinks high in sugar. Is sugar-free actually better for us, or got more bits and pieces we shouldn't be having?
I think you can't say that sugar-free drinks are automatically healthy. They may be healthier, particularly if you've got a child drinking them, where you discover that a can of full-fat Coke is way above the amount that really children should be having. So we want that move to happen. But to be honest with you, we should be getting people to drink water, more straightforward water, which sounds very boring, but it is much better for you than sort of ready-made drinks.
Well, let's talk through a few of those now, because I think it might be surprising to some of our viewers just how much sugar is in some of these drinks. So we'll start with the Emmy Cafe Latte here. This has 7.3 grams per 100 millilitres of sugar. Let's move on to another one. We've got the Yazoo chocolate milk drink. This is 8.9 grams of sugar. And finally, the Shaken Udder chocolate protein drink, which has 9.7 grams. So I suppose my question is, reducing drinks down to 5 grams, making sure people are drinking that. What sort of difference would that make to a person? Because it's only really a few grams per 100 millilitres.
It is, but you've got to multiply it by the volume. One of those was 600 mils, so you've got to multiply it by 6 to get the total number of grams in the drink. And so you've got spoonfuls and spoonfuls of sugar. And we all know that lots of sugar is not good for you. It's empty calories. It increases the risk of things like diabetes and obesity and so on. We really want to make sure that we keep sugars down to a low level. This is a modern thing. For centuries, you couldn't actually produce large amounts of sugar, and so people didn't drink sweetened drinks.
What's next? What's going to be sugar taxed next? Because it seems the fizzy drinks, the milkshakes and lattes, and there, of course, are the health implications and reasons that the government's doing this. But people will be sitting at home thinking, don't take away my one treat. If they are having it in moderation, of course, it's fine, as you've described to us. But what's next? What's up on the chopping block?
Well, firstly, actually, the fizzy drinks, they are going to lower the limit from 5 to 4 grams. But most people aren't going to really notice that. I'm sure the manufacturers will change it. It's very difficult to predict what people are going to come up with. And I think there is a balance. We don't want to be a nanny state which just stops people from doing all sorts of things. I'd rather educate, get people reading labels so they can actually see what's healthy and what isn't healthy. And don't be fooled by things like high protein content and so on, because it have lots of sugar as well.
Do you think that's part of the problem as well? We don't really understand how to read the labels as well. We know we've got the categories of the sort of orange, the green, like the traffic light system, and the red that's glaringly terrible. But if it's covered in lots of different pretty packaging and marketing, we might miss or be ignorant, blissfully ignorant to those labels.
We need to be teaching children about this so they come through with that knowledge. When I diagnose a new diabetic, we have an education process which includes teaching them how to go around the supermarket, looking at labels, what's good, what's bad, and so on. Really, we need to expand that out to everybody, especially as some of the supermarkets don't use the colour pattern, so you'll just see blue across the part. So you've got to look at the percentage, then you've got to try and work out whether that's good, bad, or otherwise. So I'd rather have a proper traffic light system everywhere and teach people what it really means.
Do you think there needs to be regulation for that in supermarkets to get a traffic light system mandatory?
I'd love to have it much more consistent. And in some countries, such as Germany, for example, they just give you a basic thing saying as well, just do we consider this to be unhealthy, moderate, healthy, and so on. So you get an even quicker glance, because you're going around the supermarket looking at every label like I do, is a bit nerdy, but at the same time is really important.
Yeah.
Well, just finally, something that people do overlook as well is looking after themselves in the heat. We've seen these record temperatures for the start of May, 28 degrees in parts of the county yesterday, and along with that is these high UV rays, which some people think that when the clouds come, they're safe, but we should always be protecting our skin and our well-being.
Yes, once we're getting into spring and summer, you've got high UV. Even overcast days, there's UV still coming through because it penetrates the clouds. So in hot weather, there's two things. You've got to look at temperature, so don't actually go out and, without a hat so that you don't get things like heat stroke, and make sure you take plenty of fluids. On UV, again, a hat is a very good way if you're like me and bald. Make sure you put your sun cream on and repeatedly put it on because you'll sweat it off. And if you go swimming as well, it'll be washed off. So you've got to keep putting it back in. If you do that, you'll minimise your chances of getting cancer.
And earlier in the show you mentioned as well, we were talking about perhaps lots of people this week rushing to get a paddling pool, many of them this weekend disappointed that it's not so hot, but actually sitting in that cold water gives you sort of a false impression of the temperature outside.
It does, and the UV reflects off the water, so you get a double dose from the top and the bottom. So you've got to be cautious about it. And we put our children in paddling pools and they sit there out in the sun for ages. So again, being a little bit careful. Make sure if you put a waterproof sun cream on, that's going to protect them, or just put them in a t-shirt in their top.
Okay, all right, Julian, some very important advice there. Thank you very much for keeping us up to date.
Well, later on in the programme, we'll be looking at some of that hot weather and how people have been reacting to it, including some businesses who actually are saying even though more people are coming down to the beaches, they're not turning to the amusements.
No, turning to the water, like Finn did this week. He went
He
for a
did.
swim as well. All right, we'll see you after this very short break.
Hello and welcome back to the Kent Morning Show live on KMTV. Now let's take a look back at our headlines today.
Counting is set to begin later today in this year's Kent County Council election to determine which party, if any, will take control of County Hall. Election staff at 12 sites across Kent are working to determine the results of 81 seats in KCC's divisions. We'll bring you updates as they happen.
Records have been broken as Kent's seen its hottest start to May on record, with temperatures rising to highs of 28 degrees in the county on Thursday. We've been speaking with those heading down to the beach to enjoy it, and the firms worried it's taking business away from them.
An annual survey which monitors the number of bugs squashed on our number plates has found a long-term decline in the number of flying insects. Kent Wildlife Trust's analysis of more than thousands of journeys across Britain shows a 63% drop in numbers of insects.
And a man from Gravesend preparing to walk 1,000,000 miles this month to raise awareness and funds for mental health provisions.
All right, but to one of our main stories this morning, with temperatures here in Kent as high as 28 degrees. Today marks the hottest day of the year. Actually, I think it was yesterday. Yesterday, because today we haven't had the day. So yesterday, marked the hottest day before the summer's even really kicked off.
Yeah, the number's even broken records as the hottest start to May ever. But local businesses in Margate say that while the heat might be bringing in the tourists, they're heading for the beach rather than their businesses.
Kristen Hawthorne went down to Margate seafront to find out more.
As global warming becomes more and more present in our daily lives, days like today really show the impact of climate change. People in the UK usually don't expect high temperatures until the summertime, but the heat today has got people out on the beach and sunbathing.
The weather is perfect. We escape, have day off. We say why not? See, it's beautiful. It'll be cold, but it's really nice. Till the moment, I really enjoy it. I like it. I hope it's continue like this.
I don't feel it is very hot. I think it's 20 degrees, 22 degrees, but it feels like it's more hot because of humidity, but I think it's not yet. It's only the first day of the year when it's the most hot now. So when it's holiday time, I don't stay too much at the Margate beach. I go to Westgate, more quiet places, because now it's alright. I think everybody's at the work, that's why it's not busy. Maybe after 3 o'clock afternoon, people coming back home from work, so.
I wouldn't walk about in it for too long, but it's nice if you can go in your garden, but I wouldn't spend the day on the beach. Not for me, it's a bit too hot. Apparently it's only here for a day or two, and it's going back to being chilly the weekend.
You were saying it was quite cold, and this is the first
It's been freezing in Herne Bay and Margate, because I look at the weather every day. My daughter lives in Margate, and it's been really cold, like fleece and under fleece, yeah.
It is the 1st of May today, and here in Margate, temperatures have reached highs of 26 degrees. There are people out sunbathing and building sandcastles, but isn't all fun and games?
No, the hot weather doesn't help us at all, really. It brings people to the area, but unfortunately they are on there as opposed to in here. For us as an industry, what we need a nice day forecast, and then the forecasters get it wrong, because when people are in Margate and they're on the beach and the weather turns a little bit, the first thing they do is end up coming straight into the arcades for cover and what have you. So they're here for the day. It's like, well, we'll be on the beach. If we can't go on the beach, well, let's go in the arcade. So that's what works better for us.
Even though the summer has seemingly come early this year, one business says it's not enough, and that the cost of living has affected how people can enjoy their time come rain or shine. Kristen Hawthorne for KMTV in Margate.
Well, with that in mind, let's see what the forecast is looking like today and over the coming days. Well, to start with, today is looking much of the same. Clear skies for most of us, temperatures in the high teens, so fairly warm, maybe not as warm as it was yesterday. And as we go towards the rest of today, temperatures in the low 20s, but clear skies all around, those winds slightly picking up. But sadly, as we go toward, maybe happily for some, as we go towards the rest of the weekend and to Monday, temperatures cooling down as those clouds cover the skies.
Now, a new report reveals that 75% of Kent police officers feel worse off financially than they were 5 years ago, with many struggling to cover essentials like food and rent.
Well, the Kent Police Federation survey also shows high stress levels and low morale, with 17% of officers planning to leave the force soon, raising concerns for community safety. Well, Neil Menny, chair of the Kent Police Federation, joins us now. Neil, thank you very much for being with us this morning. What is driving these alarming figures, and how are officers coping?
I think essentially it does come down to paying conditions, and we need to attract officers into the profession. We need to keep them in the profession. This is really important, and unfortunately we're seeing a trend of officers really struggling with the cost of living, as you've already indicated, with ever-increasing workloads and the relentless nature of police work that is really causing some issues here in Kent and indeed nationally across the whole country.
Officers having to make really tough choices, like things like cutting back on some family expenses and some even relying on food banks.
Yes, indeed. It's very, very concerning, and we are aware. We understand through our benevolent fund, for example, we have officers who are seeking assistance who are in some very difficult situations, and for a profession such as this to have the stress that exists already in a very stressful profession, and then to have to deal with those additional stresses at home, it is really not a good recipe and is very concerning.
The survey also shows that there are other factors in play. It's not purely financial. 59% of Kent officers say that their workload over the last year has been too high or much too high. How does stress show up in your colleagues in their sort of day-to-day work?
Well, I think obviously we see an increase in our survey. In fact, if we look nationally, 81% report poor mental health, which is quite a staggering statistic. I think many of our colleagues actually, to use a phrase, soldier on at work whilst dealing with this. But we do, of course, see inevitably an impact in their well-being and sickness levels, and just generally how they're feeling. It's very, very hard for them to maintain, and it's only in recent years that we've got much better at talking about mental health and officers coming forward to talk about their mental health, which in a profession traditionally was sort of, well, you don't talk about these things. So it's good that we're recognising the problem, but we need to do more to deal with it and look after our officers and make sure that they're at least enjoying their work and enjoying their home life as well as far as they can.
Workload is too much and therefore amounting to a lot of pressure on police officers. Are they doing their duties to the maximum? Are they able to fulfil their role as a public-facing and public-serving body?
I don't think the public will necessarily see the impact. So there's been a problem now for some considerable time where the amount of work that we've got coming in still continues to far outstrip the number of police officers that we've got. Policing is all about focusing on what police should be doing. And I do think it's time to have another look at what it is the police shouldn't be doing as well as what they should be doing. We still have a lot of commitments that are actually not crime related in the areas of missing people, in the areas of mental health. We need to really focus on what's important and concentrate on those elements. And it's an important question that needs to be asked, because it's not sustainable to keep trying to struggle with the amount of investigations and workload that are coming in. Policing is wide and diverse. Recently we've seen a government increase in funding, but that restricts where those officers are put into the neighbourhood environment. And neighbourhood is very important, and it's important that we see our colleagues on the street. But then other such units that are dealing with paedophilia, with burglary, with robbery, with organised crime groups, all of these factors are important. They all need addressing, and they all need a certain level of highly trained resources to deal with them. So it does become very challenging.
This is how the people that are meant to keep us safe are feeling. Is the system working? Is the system broken?
I think policing is probably approaching something of a crisis. We are very close to a point where it's been suggested that 40% of police officers will have less than 5 years service. We have forces that are, and including Kent, that have maintained an uplift of police officers, but at the same time are having to make very significant savings. And this is kind of almost opposite where we should be. And I think we need to invest much more in policing. We need a much better funding formula. We need an increase in pay and an improvement in conditions for our officers in order for them to stay healthy, to stay motivated, and just give them that quality of life. This is a vocation, and officers come into policing to help protect us all, and it's really important we look after them.
We have got a response from Kent Police on the topic. It says that it welcomes the Federation's pay and morale report. It says it's always very helpful in understanding the views and feelings of officers. It says that it's important to note that only around a quarter of the more than 4,000 officers took part in the survey, but it does take the views seriously and remains committed to working with the Federation. It then goes on to say that it has a number of initiatives already in place to support officers, including access to health and wellbeing services, as well as advice on financial wellbeing, such as bills, budgeting and debt. It doesn't sound like there's anything there in way of sort of changing what's already at hand. What's your sort of response to that?
Well, I think the comment about the sample size is slightly nefarious, only because we see this picture nationally across the whole country. It's not just Kent. Every force is reporting similar issues. Now, Kent Police does have an awful lot of welfare provision and occupational health provision. It also has an employee assistance programme separate from the police. So in fact, it does offer some level of services which other forces don't. But the fact is, they're also extremely busy and they're becoming somewhat overwhelmed because this is a large problem. So we need to address this at the roots, really, and try and improve it.
It is a national issue, as you mentioned there, Neil. Thank you very much for your time today and for joining us on the show.
All right, time for a break now. We'll have plenty more after this.
Hello and welcome back to the Kent Morning Show live on KMTV.
Now, an annual survey which monitors the number of bugs squashed on a number plate has revealed a long-term decline in the number of flying insects.
Yeah, well, bugs play a vital part of our ecosystem by providing vital services such as pollinating crops and decomposing waste.
Well, the research aims to monitor flying insect abundance. Daisy Page has more.
Taking the time to look closer at nature, you may get the chance to see a pollinator feeding on flowers and even crane flies taking flight. Insects play an important part of our ecosystem, underpinning our food chain which supports birds, mammals and other wildlife, but research is showing that their population is declining. Bugs Matter is a national systems of science survey of flying insect abundance, led by the Kent Wildlife Trust in partnership with the invertebrate charity Bug Life. Volunteers take part by cleaning their number plate ahead of a drive. Then using the Bug Matter app, they monitor their journey. Recent data collected showed there were 30% more journeys recorded in 2024 than in 2023.
So when you've finished your journey, you take a photo of the number plate using the virtual spotometer. You count the number of bug splats. 1, 2, 3. Enter that in the app. Say whether it rained or not, and that's it. Submit, and that submits the bug splat count along with the journey route.
But the latest data has revealed that the number of insects sampled on a vehicle's number plate across the UK has fallen by 63% since 2021.
Unfortunately, they are in decline due to all the usual factors that are affecting most biodiversity, so land cover change, loss of natural habitats, pollution, climate change, all these big drivers of biodiversity loss. When you consider what the terrestrial surface of our planet looked like a few thousand years ago, we've transformed it from swathes of natural habitat to huge areas of agriculture.
But these small creatures may have a bigger impact than we may think.
Insects and other invertebrates provide a huge number of essential services, I guess you could call them, which support human life and the life of other animals. So they do things like they pollinate our crops, they help to break down waste and recycle nutrients, and insects are food for other animals. Lots of birds, lots of fish, lots of mammals feed on insects. So they provide these services, so these essential parts in the food chains and the functioning of ecosystems, but they're also important in their own right.
It is hoped by tracking the bug splats on vehicle number plates, we will have a better understanding of how their abundance is changing over time. Daisy Page for KMTV.
Now, a Gravesend man is walking 1 million steps this May along the Thames path to raise awareness and funds for mental health, supporting the charity Mind.
Yeah, Bipinda Sandhu, a mindfulness coach, has already walked from London to Edinburgh and Cardiff. He's now gearing up for an epic London to Paris trek in August.
Well, Bipinda joined us in the programme earlier today.
As a mindfulness coach, I see the effect of mental health firsthand. And it's easy to sit in an office or a 5-star hall and lecture about mindfulness, mental health is easy. But as a mindfulness coach, to reflect what I preach, I just say, take on these challenges, because mental health is such a big challenge. To reflect that challenge, I do these walks to be in parallel with what I'm talking about.
Hello, good morning, it's Abby here. So tell me, why Paris now? Is that sort of just the next step? Are you going to go further next time? Tell us about that decision.
To be honest, these things come instantly. It's not like I planned something or I did London to Edinburgh and then I did London to Cardiff. They just comes up naturally. So I'm doing million steps. So I'm thinking about that at the moment. And once that's done, I'll start planning about London to Paris. And once that's done, we'll think of something next.
And you're raising funds for Mind, aiming for sort of £10,000 with some of your past walks as well. Just tell us, what does Mind's work mean to you, and how important is that funding?
the thing is, people need to go somewhere. NHS, there's so much long waiting list. There are 2 million people on a waiting list on NHS for mental health issues. So where shall we go? So mine is one of those charities where it provides like talking therapies and consultations and all sort of online help. So that's the first point of contact and it's national as well. So if we talk about it, it's in Kent, it's in Berkshire, it's everywhere in the country. So it's not a regional charity. So that's why raise funds for this mind charity here.
We've also spoken about the taboo surrounding mental health as well. It's something we talk about a lot on this show. Have you seen that particular stigma around mental health play out in Kent communities as well, particularly talking here in the county?
It's global thing, like especially when we go to suburbs, right? When we go away from London, there is a big problem. People are still scared. I talk about mental health problems in South Asian communities, but I have seen it like wide in every community. The proportion might be a bit less or high in certain communities, but overall, still in 21st century, people are aware that there is mental health issues, but they are scared to talk about it. They don't want to come openly about it.
Now, you've been doing this a while now, doing obviously these walks, these talks. You're a seasoned professional in what you do as well and sharing sort of that mindfulness message. What's the impact you think you've had and how do you think things have changed in the scope of what you've done in the years you've been doing it? Has the conversation around mental health got better and more open, and actually are we making a difference?
We are in the right direction. We are making progress, but it's not at the speed that we need to make it. We are still at a very slow pace because technology is growing exponentially. Human consciousness is growing at a very slow scale. So there's a big exponential difference between our development of our consciousness and technology. As the gap goes bigger, there will be more mental health problems. So we need to work more. It's not just one person or one charity. We have to come collectively. 8 billion living on this planet have to come collectively to fight this battle.
And we're taking a look at some of the pictures of your previous walks here. You always seem to be joined by quite a lot of people. I mean, there is something social about walking, isn't there? Especially when you're joined by a community that is just so positive for our mental health.
Yeah, because you need support. Because these journeys you can't do by yourself. You need this support system, especially when you go on these long journeys, you're out there for 20 days. You have to have this system. And this is what it is all about. Sending the message across. I can be walking by myself, but what's the point if the message doesn't reach anybody? So this is my family and friends that join me on every walk. And then through social media, like channels like yourself, thank you so much for having me. We are trying to create a bigger impact, sharing the message to wider audiences.
Yeah, and that's, of course, a huge part of the mental preparation and the mental journey, being there with your friends and family as well while you're doing these walks. But there's some physical preparation that goes into it. Like I said, you're no rookie at this. You know what you're doing when it comes to these long walks. But tell us about the training for the London to Paris. What have you been up to?
I do a bit of strength training, but mostly I concentrate on walking long distances. Like yesterday, I did 30,000 steps because May I'm doing 1 million steps. So it has to be about 32,000 steps every day. And it was the hottest day since now. So it was just like, basically, it's the mindset. When you take on challenges like this, it's more about the mindset. You have to be physically fit, you have to train, but it's more about your mental strength and clarity of what you're doing because no track is same. Like London to Scotland was totally different. London to Cardiff was another thing. And then when we did Easter weekend, when we did walk from London to Brighton, that was a totally different thing because London to Brighton, we just walked all the way through, no break, 100 kilometers. So it's all about, I think, more mental clarity and mental health as well.
Amazing interview there. All right, let's take a very quick look at the weather now before we go this morning.
So if you've been enjoying this week's lovely weather, then this morning carries on in somewhat of a way. High teens, clear skies for most of us, highs of 19.
Warming up to this afternoon, evening as well, but dropping down a bit by the coast there, so perhaps not the sunny evening at the beach you were hoping for, but temperatures about 18 on Saturday, 13 down on Sunday, Monday 12 degrees, cloudy skies. I've been saying this all morning, that people sorry, pardon me. Got a great time to have a cough. People will be buying paddling pools. I imagine they'll be sold out in a lot of the shops this week.
Yeah.
Use them for a couple of days, and then it's 13 degrees on Sunday when they can enjoy it.
To water the plants maybe over the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, it is going to be cooling down, but this is my prediction, and I'm by no means.
Oh, we don't like his predictions.
I'm by no means a weather expert at all, but I think this was just a prelude. I think this was a bit of foreshadowing for the lovely summer that we're all going to have.
Like, stay in England, everybody. Don't book your holidays. I'm going to be sunny in England, I promise.
Yeah, nobody book any holidays, and then they'll be all cheap.
Stay in Kent, stay in the Garden of England, go to our coasts.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so that is it for the morning show. You know, when we started talking about the weather, that's time for things to go. Now, we will be back on Tuesday because Monday is, of course, a bank holiday. But before then, we've got